it's not real clear, but I would say that one understanding is that the developmental view, which is basically the basic view of Western therapy, not all schools, but basically, starts with an understanding, a belief, which I think is supported by a lot of my own clinical experience, that our experience as very, very young little beings is profoundly impactful in terms of how we adapt to our experience, our life, other people, and that we all will sort of do whatever we have to do to survive, because we can't talk, we can't walk, we're immature, we're dependent, we have to cue off of others all the time. So we come up with a variety of survival strategies. If we're lucky and have a fortunate emotional environment, physical environment, social environment, we have more likelihood of those survival strategies having a certain fluidity to them that can be updated more frequently, because we can risk being more vulnerable because our experience has been more positive or safe as a child. If our experience is very toxic, dangerous, neglectful, abusive, our strategies tend to sort of get put in concrete very quickly because we don't want to mess with our survival strategies if it's a dangerous world. And so we come into adulthood, and most people, I think, somewhat unconsciously continue to relate to themselves and others in the world out of these young templates, these young strategies. And that's especially true when we feel threatened or anxious or vulnerable or something like that. That's when there's strong regressive pressure. And so we rely on what's sort of most basic. So a lot of our adult capacities sort of get lost temporarily under difficult circumstances. So a lot of Western therapy, a developmental view, tries to clarify what are those strategies that I'm still relying on that are not wrong. They are actually our best effort to take care of ourselves. That's what they were. That's what they are now. It's not pathology, which unfortunately a lot of times in the West, neurosis is addressed as pathology. I don't see it that way. I just see it basically as an out-of-date effort to take the best care of ourselves possible. So a lot of Western therapy could be understood as bringing those efforts of self-care into alignment with our current adult capacities and our current adult life circumstances. Because especially when things are difficult, we tend to behave as if we were still a child in our young families of origin. And that's especially vivid in relationships, I find. From a Buddhist point of view, I'd say the developmental view is working with the progression of capacities on a relative level. And my understanding, I'm not a Buddhist scholar, but my understanding is that relative experience is basically everything that has form, everything that's constructed. And then absolute experience, as I understand it, is just basically open awareness or nature mind or whatever we want to call that. It has no ascribable qualities. You can't get a hold of it with your senses or your thoughts, but it's always present. It's the most intimate of our aspects of experiencing. So from that point of view, from the Buddhist point of view, developmental work is really to facilitate our slowly probably cultivating a capacity to touch into this open, always present awareness just more frequently, maybe a little bit longer, start to have that openness gradually become integrated into the sort of texture of our daily life. But from that point of view, we don't mean integration like in the West. In the West, we tend to take, I don't know if it was Hegel or whoever, but we tend to take this thesis, antithesis, synthesis view of integration. So we come up with a new version. I don't prefer that. To me, I see a Western Buddhist or developmental fruitional view more like an intimate relationship. And if you're in a relationship, or any of the listeners are, you don't try to integrate with your partner. You don't try to come up with one sort of emotional entity. You have two separate people who have an overlap, as you were asking before. There's an overlap. Yeah, it's like a Venn diagram where you have a separate self, you have another separate self, and you have this third sort of energetic arising that is more complex than the two separately. So I prefer to see, sort of more of like an intimate relationship where there's a back and forth, rather than think that there's some integration between Buddhism and psychotherapy.